Welcome to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast, brought to you by TournamentPokerEdge.com, the only podcast dedicated exclusively to poker tournament strategy. Now here's your host, Clayton Fletcher.
Hello once again, everybody, and welcome to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast. My name is Clayton Fletcher, and I am in beautiful, pastoral, chilly Baltimore, Maryland. Happy as ever to be bringing you yet another episode of the world's longest running poker strategy podcast, Tournament Poker Edge. I want to thank you guys for another great year. This will be the last episode of 2024. So in just a minute, we're going to take a look at some goals that I had set for myself back in January of this year and see how we did. But first, I want to let you know about some stand-up comedy that I'll be doing this weekend in Gaithersburg, Maryland at Give a Hoot Comedy Club. You can get tickets for these Gaithersburg shows by clicking the link in the description of this podcast where it says, "Get tickets here." And I also will be with our friend Joe Stapleton. That's right, Stapes and I are performing together once again. And this show is going to be in Denver on January 16th at the Denver Improv. That's a Thursday night, one night only, to see me and Stapes on the same stage. And it's one of the best comedy clubs in the whole country, the Denver Improv, January 16th. Oh, and how can we forget New Year's Eve in New York City at West Side Comedy Club. Nobody does New Year's quite like New York, and you can join me and some of the funniest comedians you will ever see December 31st, 8 p.m. and 10 p.m. at West Side Comedy Club in peaceful, tranquil New York City. All right, enough comedy. Let's talk about my poker goals for 2024 as this year comes to a close. I am looking back on what I was able to accomplish. And I have to say, it's been a really rough year in poker. Tournaments were rough this year, as you will see. So let's just review one at a time the goals that I set for myself this year. I wanted to play 60 live MTTs. And if I buy into the same tournament twice, I call that 2 buy-ins. So it's really 60 buy-ins that I plan to do in live tournaments, and I only made it to 46. Almost all of them were as part of the World Series of Poker, 36 there and just 10 elsewhere. I ended up doing a lot of traveling this year, but mostly playing in cash games on the road due to scheduling and where I had to be next and stuff like that. You don't want to play a 2-day tournament if you're supposed to be somewhere else on day 2. So I just ended up mostly playing the cash games, as you will see. So we made it to a total of 46 live MTTs. And the worst news of all is I only cashed in 3. And my career cash rate is 16%. And so this is less than 10%, only 3 out of 46. So we can see why it was such a miserable year for me, particularly in tournament poker, at least in terms of the results. But it's only 46 data points, and there is a lot of variance in this game that we love. But still, those 3 little cashes didn't really pay the bills this time around, and I'm ready to turn the page. All right, now online, the goal was to play 400 online MTTs. I beat this one. I got to 511, and there I cashed in 88. So I actually showed a decent profit online, an ROI of almost 9%, which we'll take every year we can get it. By the way, guys, if you want to share your own goals for the year with me and let me know how you did, if you've been keeping track and if you've done well or maybe missed a few marks, let me know on Twitter, Clayton Comic, or you can just join the TPE Discord and direct message me right there. All right. One of my big goals for 2024 was to become a streamer. Prior to this year, I had never streamed on Twitch. And I'm happy to say I streamed a lot in 2024, including during the World Series of Poker and during the Venom in the spring. So yeah, there were some pretty big tournaments that I was able to broadcast and share with those who follow me on twitch.tv/ClaytonComic. I spent almost 200 hours streaming in 24, and I'm going to beat that number in 25. By the way, guys, next week I'll start setting goals for next year. So I'm not ready to do that today, but I did want to wrap up the year with kind of a look back at the year that was. Another goal I set was 120 hours of poker study, and I'm very happy to say that I obliterated this number. I got 285 hours of concentrated study in. This is either using GTO Wizard or reading poker books or watching videos where I'm not doing anything else, listening to a podcast, but really concentrating on the poker strategy. Adding all of that up for the year, I was able to get to 285 hours of study. I'm very proud of that accomplishment. All right, another goal I set was 250 hours of live cash games. And I mentioned earlier in my travels, I ended up playing in a lot of cash games at various casinos around the US and Canada. But I did fall a bit short of this goal, guys. I reached 221 hours of live cash, missing my goal by 29 hours. And the last goal I want to address was to put out 50 episodes of the Tournament Poker Edge podcast. And I'm very proud to say I only missed 1 week all year long. And this episode will be the 51st episode of the year 2024. Okay, guys, before we get into a hand history review here, I want to hear about your goals for 2024 and what you might be thinking about for 2025. I'm also interested in how you guys celebrate the holidays. You know, do you get together with family and play poker around the kitchen table? Do you go to the casino with your brother or your cousin after you have Christmas dinner or whatever? I'm interested in what role poker plays in your holiday experience. Like, I personally am here in Maryland. There are a lot of poker players in my family. Anyone who's ever seen my stand-up comedy knows my mother was a poker player for a great many years. She's retired now, but all of us are into poker, and it is definitely something that we Fletchers tend to bond over. I want to hear about how it is with your family and with your friends, and what happens when you go home. Do you get a chance to go home and see everyone around the holidays, and what is that like? I mean, I know in comedy, it's kind of a trope that, you know, going to visit your family is horrible. You're going to argue about politics. Somebody's going to knock over a table and insult your girlfriend's religion or whatever, right? But in real life, it's not always like that, is it? I want to know what it's like for you. So get on the Discord, get on Twitter, let me know how your holiday experience was or is this year. All right, so let's talk a little bit about a hand that I introduced a couple of weeks ago here on the podcast from the $1,100 Prime Championship, part of the World Poker Tour Championship Festival at the Wynn out there in fabulous Las Vegas. But this time it's a hand that we talked about already, but this time I want to use GTO Wizard to analyze my play. This is a hand that was actually written up on the World Poker Tour blog. Shout out, by the way, to the WPT live reporting team. You guys do a great job. GTO Wizard is experiencing an upswing of its own with Analyzer 2.0. Now, this is a software upgrade, and it's full scale, guys. Available at all tiers of subscription. It's a revamped interface, so it's much easier to use, and it was already pretty darn easy to use for my money. Advanced stats. You can really customize all the filters and just take your hand history analysis to the next level. Along with this upgrade, they've also upgraded the GTO Wizard AI engine to deliver even sharper, more consistent, more precise solutions to virtually any spot in virtually any type of poker tournament. And you guys can try this out for free by clicking the link in the description. That's our affiliate link. And if you use it, you'll get 24 hours unlimited access to all of these features and more. And then when the 24-hour trial period ends, once you're ready to buy, you'll save 10% just because you used our affiliate link, which is gtowizard.com/p/TPE. From the Prime Championship, and the blinds were 500, 1,000, and 1,000. The average was 40K, and we had about 63K in the stack, so we were doing quite well fairly early on in the action. And the player in the cutoff position opened to 2,300, and I was in the big blind with the ace of clubs, 10 of hearts. Now, our opponent had us well covered, almost by double. He had really been killing it early on. And the flop comes king of clubs, 10 of diamonds, 8 of spades. So we flop middle pair, top kicker, and I checked. Opponent bet 3K into 6,100, and I called. So the solver always checks to the razor. In this spot, it's 100% pure check. And then when facing a half pot bet, we almost always call. It's a 98% call, and we raise the other 2% of the time, so almost a pure call. So I have to give myself a good check mark for this one. And now with 12,100 in the middle, the turn came the 6 of hearts, and I decided to check once again, and my opponent checked as well. So let's look at the solver output here. We do actually lead for about half the pot, 3% of the time, just donk right out on that 6 of hearts. And it kind of makes sense to start to have some kind of donk leading range on 4th Street. It does make sense to occasionally put out a little bet, half the pot, what have you. But yeah, I think it's fine to pretty much check always in this spot as well. Having checked the flop, we can check again on the turn. Although, like I say, it does donk lead. GTO Wizard donk leads 3% of the time, either half the pot or quarter of the pot, never bigger than that. And 90% of the time, yeah, we do check again. And then on the river, it came the 4 of spades, which is basically a blank. Yeah, the 5-7 got there, but nothing else. And I decided to donk now and go ahead and lead on the river. I remember we talked about this a couple weeks ago. I felt like my river bet would be more likely to get called than a bet on the turn. And I really felt like at this point, my 10s would usually be good. I'm trying to get value from a worse 10 or maybe a hand like pocket 9s. And I bet 5K into 12,100, just about 40% of the pot. And let's see what the solver has to say. Well, here's what's most interesting to me. On this river, the solver never checks. It's always a lead. It's possible that when we get that check back from our opponent on the turn, it's just a really strong sign that he doesn't have a king. And if he doesn't have a king, he's very likely to have a worse hand than ace 10. So we have to go for value here because a lot of those hands will check behind and just try to get that cheap showdown. And then we cannot get value for our hand. And this is what I'm learning. The more I use GTO Wizard, you start to find these spots. Basically, ace 10 is not a bluff catcher. It's a little too strong. It's a value bet. It's not a check and hope our opponent bets so we can call type of hand. Maybe that's how we would play 10-9 suited or jack 10 or pocket 9s even. We can check call with those hands. But given that we have the best possible kicker, and whereas opponent's range is so capped with that check back on the turn, we've just got to fire here. So the solver literally never checks. It only does my sizing about 6.4% of the time. The favored play is about 1,500 into 12,100, so less than 15% of the pot. That is the 56% play. And also a big bet, 10,500 into 12,100 is a 28% play. But the important thing to note here is bet something. When you're in these spots and you have what could be considered a very strong bluff catcher, when you are out of position, as I am here, it's better to actually bet than to check and try to induce a bluff from your opponent. I've seen this with a lot of different hands. that I've run through the solver. And a general note, something that I've noticed about my own game, guys, is that I don't lead the river enough from out of position. And I'm going to leave it there for this episode. And not only for this episode, but for this year. That is something I'm going to take with me into 2025 and plug that leak in my game and bet more rivers just like I bet this one in the WPT Prime Championship. And for everyone here at Tournament Poker Edge, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy New Year, and thank you so much for listening.
I wanna hold them like they do in Texas, please. Fold them, let them hit me, raise it, baby, stay with me. Luck and intuition, play the cards with babes to start. And after she's been hooked, I'll play the one that's on her heart. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. I'll get her heart, show her what I got. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. I'll get her heart, show her what I got. Can't read mine, no she can't read a mile. Poker face, she's got to love nobody. Can't read mine, no she can't read a mile. Poker face, she's got to love nobody. Poker face, poker face. Poker face, poker face. I wanna roll with her, a hard pair we will be. While little gambling is fun when you're with me. Russian roulette is not the same without a gun. And baby, when it's love, it's not rough, it isn't fun. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. I'll get her heart, show her what I got. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. I'll get her heart, show her what I got. Can't read mine, no she can't read a mile. Poker face, she's got to love nobody. Can't read mine, no she can't read a mile. Poker face, she's got to love nobody. Poker face, poker face. Poker face, poker face. Can't read mine, no she can't read a mile. Poker face, she's got to love nobody. Can't read mine,